All right, welcome back to One True Podcast. With me, as always, is my good friend John Werner. Johnny, how we doing?
Hey, Brice. Good morning.
Hey, Brice. It's the AM. Golly, man, you need some caffeine.
Yeah.
And with us, he was on the pod last year about this same time when Iowa State was coming down to Waco. But with us is Randy Peterson of the Des Moines Register. Randy has done 50 years at the Des Moines Register. Congratulations.
Great. I've got the white hair to show
it. Did they at least, do anything cool for your anniversary?
My anniversary actually is December 12th.
Okay.
Something along those lines. And I hear through the grapevine that there's Gannett or the Register or somebody is working together with my daughters, and I'm not supposed to know anything about it for something. So I don't know. And I've told my daughters, I said, I want to stay out of it. I've got football and basketball to about which to concern myself. So I want to stay out of it. But John, it's nice to see you could wake up. I'm wide awake for this. So, I've been blessed. I like we all have in this business. The unit so long, we've all been blessed.
Yes, you're right, Randy.
Well,
Congratulations.
I was thinking about it collectively because Johnny, you've been in the business. You were at the Brazosport Facts before the Trib, but you've been at the Trib for 40 years. Yeah. And
I'm 10 behind Randy.
Just a kid.
So collectively, we've got about, 120 years in the business. So this may be the grumpy old man version of the podcast. I don't know. But
I think we've all been called that a time or two.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. But, we're not grumpy.
Not at all.
So
speak for yourself, Brice.
All right. So guys, this does set up as a pretty interesting Big 12 opener for both Iowa State and Baylor. And last year at the same time, it was plenty intriguing in Waco. The then unranked Baylor Bears knocked off the 14th ranked Cyclones 31-29. Now those positions are kind of flipped. Baylor is the ranked team. Iowa State is the unbeaten unranked team. Do you see the Cyclones flipping the script on the outcome?
I can see it. I really can. Just the way Iowa State's been playing, and I guess I base that off of one game essentially, because Southeast Missouri and Ohio certainly weren't any tests at all. But the way Iowa State played at Iowa, it was, okay, sure, it was only 10-7 victory for Iowa State. But in the fourth quarter, between the third and the fourth quarters, Iowa State, you guys, everybody's heard about it by now. That's this 21 or 22 play 99-yard drive that lasted 12 minutes, 6 for 6 on third downs. Obviously no turnovers, no fumbles even that Iowa State recovered. Their own fumbles that they recovered. Against a defense, an Iowa defense that we believe is pretty good here in this state. Iowa's offense certainly leaves something to be desired, but against a defense that's supposed to be very good, and I would even argue that once Iowa State gets done playing Baylor, that Iowa State will have played its two best defenses it's going to play all year. So given that, I can see ways for Iowa State to win this game. It's going to be, you guys know better than I. It could be a last possession game. But Matt Campbell's done a good job of keeping these Iowa State guys very grounded. And it's interesting. Last year at this time, there were no expectations, or there were huge expectations for Iowa State, given the fact that they had, the best quarterback in program history, the best tight end in program history, one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in program history. They had all these generational guys that were very good, and 4 of them ended up getting drafted. And what they do, they finished 7-6. This year, those guys are gone. They've got new guys playing, and they're 3-0, and they beat Iowa for the first time since Matt Campbell's been here. So I guess we'll see it 11 o'clock. You need a wake up call, John, by the way, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd
We
really
can handle
appreciate
that. Okay. Yeah, we can handle
Thanks,
that. All
Randy.
I love it. I love it.
right.
Johnny, what do you think?
I see Iowa State as a very similar team to BYU. Very physical defense, good quarterback, good running back. And I think it's going to be a similar game. Of course, that game went into double overtime. Baylor lost 26-20.
At least
Yeah,
it's 11
Randy,
a.m.
By the way, Randy, I got out of the press box at 2:45 a.m. I set a personal record.
Oh my God, dude, last week at the Iowa game, and I don't cover Iowa, they had a ton of rain delays against, I don't know, whoever they played. And that game got over because of the lightning delays. That game got over at like 1:45. I mean, so yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, but it's going to be really interesting. Baylor, Coach Rand has mentioned this. Their offensive line needs to get better. He wants them to play with more of an edge. Richard Reese, their freshman running back, looked great last week. So I think he's probably going to be featured again. But I think Baylor's going to have to get better at forcing turnovers defensively. That's something they really did well last year. And so far, they've only forced 2 fumbles. So it's going to be a really hard road game for Baylor. And I'm still kind of going back and forth on who I'm going to pick. But I think it'd be a down to the wire kind of game.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I was going back and looking at my column from last year's game just to refresh my memory about the game. I remembered the score, but not much else. And then I was reading the column and remembering how Treston Ebner for Baylor was really big in that game on special teams. Of course, he's with the Chicago Bears now. Baylor has several other guys from that team who are in the NFL, just like Randy was talking about with Brock Purdy and Brice Hall and those guys. So you do have a lot of new faces. But what I was thinking about was, that game for Baylor back then, because the kind of the gist of my column was we didn't really know how good these guys were, and I think they proved they were pretty good. And it was a proving game for Baylor, and they went on to win the Big 12 championship. I kind of get the sense that it may be a similar situation for Iowa State. If they can knock off Baylor, they've already proven, they're good against Iowa. I did wonder, Randy, that drive, have they called it the drive now? I mean, is that what it's called in Iowa?
We're not too creative up here. So yeah, it's so far we've got the drive. I mean, we had Brocktober with when Brock Purdy was here, because I think he only lost 1 or 2 games in the month of October. But
nice.
I think we're just sticking to the drive. But Brice, I agree with you that in that situation that you set up last year, it has flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, sure, if Iowa State should win on Saturday, and if Baylor can block a kick, that I would think about that heavily, because Iowa State's had 3 kicks blocked already this year. But yeah, this would be flipping. This would be very similar to what you wrote last year going into that game. It's a proving grounds for Baylor, and if Iowa State should win, it's certainly a proving grounds for Iowa State heading into what looked like after this game for Iowa State, heading into what looked like could be, a couple of decent games, Kansas and Kansas State. But we'll see how good Kansas is. I'm not ready to bet the farm on those guys yet, but we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely in that respect, it's definitely a proving game, or a chance for Iowa State to prove just how good they can be.
Yeah. So I don't know if this has been the case for Gannett, but with Lee papers, for whatever reason, now they are really pushing gambling content.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is my one 10-second little gambling snippet for everyone out there. Bet the under in this game, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Bet the under, which leads me to my next question, which is so Iowa State's defense has looked great. Has yet to give up more than 10 points in a game in any of the first 3 games, including that slugfest against Iowa. So Randy, you've seen this team up close. How does this defense compare to some of Matt Campbell's other teams there? And, what is it that they do particularly well?
So far, Brice, this team has stopped the rush very, very well, which that's going to be important on Saturday. Obviously, continuing that. Iowa State's giving up, I just checked out the stats here, 60 yards a game rushing. And granted, that includes Southeast Missouri and that includes Ohio. I get that. But Iowa State's done a very good job on the rush. Now, the secondary has done a decent job. It's the mid-range passes that Iowa State sometimes, the passing into short space, that were just vacated by linebackers, for example. Iowa State's had some problems defending those, but so far nothing's really come up and bit them because of that. Iowa State's linebackers have played very, very well too. Colby Reeder, a transfer from Delaware, a 25-year-old transfer from Delaware. He's got 2 interceptions already. Anthony Johnson Jr., who switched from corner to safety for his senior year, sixth year, 7th year, I don't know, with all that COVID stuff, I kind of lose track. But he got his first interception last week after, and I had somebody figure this out for me in the Iowa State Sports Information. After almost 3,000 career snaps, he had his first interception. And I thought his teammates were gonna hurt him on the sidelines. But Iowa State's defense, I would say primarily though, Iowa State's rush defense has been very good. And granted, they've not played a quarterback like Shapen, like I think Shapen can be either. So we'll just have to see if that keeps up and see what John Hickok's scheme is against Shapen.
Yeah, no doubt. So it could be one of those 10-7 kind of games. We'll see. Usually when you think it's going to be that kind of game, it turns out completely the opposite. But certainly with these 2 defenses, it shapes up as that kind of game, and it could be, who knows, a defensive score, a special teams play that really makes the difference in this game. I mean, I could see that being the case. And John mentioned it. Baylor's defense has been really solid again. However, they've got this little thing they're hanging their hat on this year. They're calling robbers and jackers. And that really hasn't blown up because they haven't been creating a lot of turnovers. Last year's team, as John noted, that was a major strength with the likes of Jalen Petrie, who's now playing for the Texans, JT Woods, who's now playing for the Chargers. Those guys were turnover machines, weren't they, John?
Oh, yeah, for sure, Brice. Those guys just had a real knack for it. Terrell Bernard's another guy you could throw in there. That was that's a big factor in their 12-2 season, just how many turnovers they forced and how they did it at key times. And that, like I said, that's something they really haven't shown so far.
Yeah, no doubt. So Randy alluded to the Jayhawks earlier. So personally, whatever skepticism I had about them was somewhat brushed aside when they went down to Houston, beat a ranked Houston Cougar team 48-30. Clearly they can put some points on the board. So what do you guys think about Lance Leipold's team? is it a bowl team? I mean, they're halfway there already.
Well, I'm going to say I'm highly impressed,
Really?
especially what they did against Houston. I mean, man, that was quite a show they put on. Yeah, they've been really good. And I've looked at their next few games here. They've got Duke at home, Iowa State at home, and TCU at home. So they could potentially be a bowl team by October 8th.
You're
Now,
saying they sweep those games?
I'm not saying they will, but I think they have a chance in each of them.
Yeah.
After that, it gets really tough. So yeah, I'd say they need to make hay, as they might say in the Midwest. I would say they need to do very well the next few weeks to have a shot.
Dude, I think what Lance Leipold has done is going to be very translatable to what he will do next year at Nebraska. There, put the heat on him now instead of I was going to say Hoiberg instead of Matt Campbell. And I'm kidding about that. I 100% am kidding about that. But that job that he's done there, I mean, everybody obviously thought of Kansas as a basketball school, and right now they're starting to think about basketball season in years past. But I've got a niece who lives right up here in Central Iowa, and she graduated from KU. She was a rower, and she's never been much of a huge football fan, but she's just really on the bandwagon. I mean, that just shows me that yeah, I mean, there were times that Iowa State would play at Kansas, and there'd be more Iowa State fans than Kansas fans. I don't suspect that'll be the case in a couple of weeks, but
yeah, it's weird to have Kansas versus Duke and it be
yeah,
a football game, right?
Isn't Duke unbeaten? What I don't.
That's right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we've got a classic basketball matchup on the football field.
Right.
Yeah, they'll just play it at Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah. So, Randy, you mentioned your niece, but we had a writer who has since passed away here at the Trib, who was a big Kansas. She was a Kansas graduate and a Kansas, like, what would you say, John? Super fan? Like, she was the most, I actually said when she passed away, I said that she was a bigger fan of Kansas athletics than anybody I've ever seen on anything. You know, she wore the blue lipstick, and she would be going crazy right now. Wouldn't you say, Johnny?
Yeah, even for football. Yeah.
Yes, even for football. It was mostly basketball with Hoppa, but yeah, she was yeah, certainly she would be, you know, so I can't help but think about that. But so out in Lubbock this week, Texas Tech announced that it would have its first sellout since 2018. I was a little surprised that they haven't had any sellouts since then, but they have sort of cycled through coaches. So the Red Raiders welcome number 22 Texas in what will likely be the Longhorns' last trip to Jones Stadium out there in Lubbock in probably a long time. So this is a series that historically has been dominated by the Longhorns, not even really historically recently. They've won 11 of the last 13 meetings. And I found this interesting. So Tech has not won over Texas in Lubbock since 2008. Now, granted, it's every other year, but that they go to Lubbock. But what do you guys think? Does that streak end on Saturday? Does Joey McGuire's team get it done?
I don't see that happening. And I was blown away when I saw that stat about Texas Tech and the sellouts. You guys have been to Lubbock more than I have, probably. What else is there to do in Lubbock?
Right.
I mean, my gosh. But anyway, I'm pretty high on Texas. I really am. And I think Sark's got it going there. As good as they are this year, I think he's got a wonderful recruiting class. And granted, they've got more money than God down there, and they're giving those student or not the schools giving the student athletes, but the name, image, and likeness stuff. Iowa State lost a basketball player. I mean, Tyrese Hunter, Iowa State's best player, lost him after this freshman year last year to Texas. So, and why not? And I think we're just tip of the iceberg of all that stuff. But I do like Texas, and especially if Ewers is coming back this week, which I understand he's practicing. We'll see about that. But Bijan Robinson, I mean, my gosh, and the receivers. Matt Campbell said a few times yesterday, that Baylor's he's very impressed with Baylor's speed. I mean, obviously the fastest team that Iowa State will have played this year. But in a 3 weeks or whenever it is, I think they're going to run into a similar speedy team like Texas. So I think Texas spoils that sellout.
Yeah. What do you say, John?
That is an amazing stat. I mean, go on the road and win in Lubbock all those years. And to me, that's a hard place to play. It's way out there, and those fans are just absolutely rabid. I would say,
last year they had to move the student body because they were throwing stuff on the Iowa State sideline.
Yeah.
They had to move the student body out.
Yeah, I would say over the top rabid a lot of times. Yeah, I'm going to take Texas. I just think they're a pretty good team right now, and to me, Tech's still a little bit unproven. Although, they've been pretty good. They beat Houston, gave North Carolina State a pretty good game. But I think I'd go with the Longhorns here.
Well, I may be the outlier. Of course, this probably says something about my college picks this season, but I may take the Red Raiders in this one. So this series has been plenty of close games, that's for sure. Even when Texas has won there in Lubbock, it's usually come down to a touchdown. They tend to be a little more lopsided in Austin. Tech doesn't play as well in Austin, but those games in Lubbock have been good and have been close. I like the energy that Joey McGuire has brought to that Texas Tech program. John and we saw that firsthand here, when he was at Baylor, and he's just a guy. He's just an infectious kind of guy. I mean, he just draws people in. He has reinvigorated that fan base. I was stunned as well, Randy, about the sellout thing. Because yes, you're right. What else is there to do? But also, it feels like they've always kind of supported that team. So I was a little surprised that they'd gone that long without a sellout. But I don't know. Texas, I agree with you guys. The Alabama game was impressive. There's no question about it. We sat here the week before that game, John, and figured it was going to be a bloodbath. And Texas showed everyone that they were for real. But they're going to have to go and show it again. I mean, that's what you have to do in conference play. And so we'll see. That's going to be a fun one. And to me, maybe the game of the week. I think Baylor Iowa State's a pretty good one too, but certainly one of the games to watch in the Big 12. So finally, I always like to close with a little food talk. We are sports writers. We call it Culinary Corner. So, Randy, every time that I've been to Ames, John's been there even more than I have. I've always been extremely impressed with the tailgating capacity of the Iowa State fans. I mean, I think they're next level for sure. So, I mean, you've been there half a century. I mean, not to make you feel old, but how does that compare? How does that compare to sort of the other great like Midwestern tailgating fan bases like the Packers and the Badgers?
Yeah, I've never been to Green Bay, so I don't know about that, but I know the Badgers. That's pretty. Wisconsin, that's the university. I covered the Big Ten for a lot of years also. And that's pretty off the charts. I mean, if you like Brice, dude, make a road trip. But the tailgating, the food experience at Iowa State this Saturday will be interesting. 11 o'clock game. They'll be tailgating at 6 or probably 7. They'll probably sleep in like John. They'll start their fires at, their grills going at 7 o'clock. And I want to be curious to see what they're grilling. Usually it's brisket that they smoked overnight, or hot dogs and hamburgers and just the typical fare. But I'll be curious to see if it's, bacon and eggs, hash browns, what kind of concoctions they'll come up with. So that'll be interesting to just walk around and get a different, a different perspective of it. But yeah, Iowa State tailgating is it's pretty much off the charts. I think it's spectacular.
I love it when you're walking up to the game, you see them all over the place, and it's awesome.
All in one area, essentially. Essentially, everybody's clustered in one area, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Brice, I will say that 2 years ago, COVID, it was so bizarre walking up through the stadium and no tailgating. I mean, wow, where am I? Well, what's happened here? But yeah, it's highly impressive. I have been to a game in Green Bay in 2009. I saw a game in December. I'll say that Iowa State's tailgating is not quite as massive, just because, there's more fans in Green Bay. But I would say equally passionate about it and serious about it.
And John, tell the wasn't it Bill Bradley in Ames? Tell that story real quick.
Yeah. So anyway, Baylor beat Iowa State as a defensive battle. It's like 2007 or something like that. Anyway, Jerry Hill, who was the Baylor football beat writer then, he wanted to find Bill Bradley, who was Baylor's defensive coordinator. He couldn't find him in the locker room. So somebody finally directed him to the Iowa State tailgate area. And he was out there tailgating after the game. And Jerry said he got a very good interview. Very, very loose, honest.
Yeah, he was a little lathered up, is what you're saying?
You might say that. But I think it was one of the better interviews Jerry ever got.
Oh, God.
Dan McCarney used to go out there after victories when he was coaching at Iowa State sometimes also. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say Kansas City Chiefs. That tailgating down there is spectacular too. But yeah,
no doubt.
It's going to be interesting Saturday. Yeah.
Well, so one year, I'll say this real quick. I think Wisconsin people do it just incredible, because one year I was one summer I took the family. We were in Milwaukee and we went to a Brewers game, and we had toured downtown Milwaukee, went to the museum there and did all that stuff. And then we were going back to the hotel to kind of get cleaned up before going to this Brewers game at Miller Park. This is several hours before a regular season baseball game, and the tailgaters were already gathered out there in the parking lot. And I'm like, for a baseball game, really? I mean, but I think it's just in the blood in Wisconsin. But certainly Iowa State, they can hold their own, and the Chiefs too. So that's good Midwestern stuff down there. I don't know that we Texans down here, it's just too dang hot. It's like, let's go find some AC. So anyway, I will expect that you guys will probably not file your stories from the tailgating area on Saturday.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. All right, but enjoy that game. Y'all have a good one. And Randy, thanks for coming on with us for sure.
My pleasure. I always enjoy being on with you guys. I can laugh. You make me laugh, and I think we're good together. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
Brice.